Good morning, everyone. Thank you for being with me today as we give you an update to the outrageous and vicious murder of Giovanni Diaz yesterday afternoon. As you know, last night when I briefed you all, we weren't able to give you any details because we didn't have a great amount of detail, and the details that we had yesterday we knew were his lies. We're going to talk about a premeditated murder for you today, and it was premeditated for a period of time when we outlined this to you. Also, we're going to make available later on, once the victims' families had an opportunity to either hear or decline to hear the 911 tape, where as he dials 911, he gives this elaborate defense of how he was just protecting himself, and then you'll see how all that elaborate lie that he created vanished once our homicide detectives confronted him with witnesses and with the evidence. But what we want to show you here today, this is some of what was on his Facebook page. And this is kind of gives an image of what we believe is the way that he thought. We know that people's Facebook pages and social media can show their real personalities, and we think that these photographs that he had on his Facebook page captures his personality very well. But let me tell you about Dylan Murray. He was 16 years of age. Dylan had a criminal history that included, Dylan had a criminal history that included 3 batteries. 2 of the batteries happened on October the 10th, 2016, when apparently on that day he battered a female and a male. The male he battered on that day, just over 2 years ago, was our victim, Giovanni, that I'm going to call Gio because that's his nickname. So we know that 2 years ago, our suspect, Dylan Murray, battered 2 people on the same day. Then a year later, about 13 months in April, he was arrested and charged for the 3rd battery when he battered his father during a domestic violence event. And that leads us up till about 10 minutes to 3 yesterday afternoon, which is Monday afternoon, whenever we got a frantic 911 call from Dylan. Dylan called the communications center asking for a deputy to respond that he had hit his friend in self-defense with a bat. And of course, when we arrived, he told the deputies, in addition to his elaborate statements that he made on 911, that he had wailed on his friend and he thought he was dead. He then was taken to the Southeast District Station where our homicide detectives met with him, and he then elaborated on that elaborate scheme that he had already presented to our 911 operators. So when we got all of that story locked in, and we got past the fact that the victim struck him first with a fist and then hit him in the forearm with a bat, and he took the bat away and hit the victim, we said some very basic things like, we don't see any evidence where you got struck in the face. We don't see where you were hit on the forearm. There's no bruising, there's no scratches, there's no indication at all. And finally, he told us the truth. And it started with a witness that we presented to him, where 2 days earlier, Dylan told a particular witness, I wonder what it's like, what does it feel like to kill somebody? Well, the witness didn't think much of it at the time. But once we confronted Dylan with the evidence at the scene, with what the witness said. Dylan then told us what we believe was the true story, and it was all crafted as a result of jealousy and anger. Dylan was supposedly told by Gio sometime prior to 2 days ago that Gio said he had relations with this young lady, a girl that Dylan liked very, very much. And he supposedly had these relations 2 years ago, and it so angered Dylan because he was in love with this young lady who didn't like him at all. So that made him mad. Then we hear the story 2 days ago where he tells the witness, I wonder what it's like to murder someone. So now we know that Gio has told Dylan sometime in the past week or two that supposedly there was a relationship. The witness has told us that Dylan is now talking about, I wonder what it's like to kill someone. And Dylan starts texting, and we see the text messages where he wants to meet with Gio. He wants to meet him at the Rocks. And the Rocks is the area where the crime scene was yesterday. There is a field there where they are known to play, and then there's a wooded area adjacent to the field. So he texts him over and over, hey, let's meet, and smoke some marijuana. You know, that harmless minor drug that obviously seems to be involved in everything we deal with around here. So Dylan and Gio met because they have been friends, even though Gio was hit by Dylan apparently a couple of years ago. That's water under the bridge. So after texting Gio said, hey, I can meet you in the afternoon, and they met there. When they met, Dylan had a t-ball bat. And we determined this t-ball bat apparently came from his house. So Dylan talked about going into the woods and smoking marijuana with our victim, Gio. Now let me stop and underscore here, Gio has never been in any trouble at all. Zero. He's reported to have a high IQ, according to the school test, according to his mother. He is a good student. He's a good kid. Gio is just not a problem child at all, and I think that adds to the sadness of this entire case. But Gio and he are friends, and they go into the woods. When they go into the woods, then Dylan supposedly wants to talk to Gio, just talk to him. And as they're talking, Gio talks again about having relations with this girl that Dylan is absolutely, totally in love with, who doesn't care anything about him at all. So Dylan has created, in my estimation, this love relationship with this girl that wants nothing to do with him. And now Gio's bragging about how he's had relations with her, and it infuriates Dylan. Dylan then points a bat at Gio, and Gio says, what are you going to do, hit me with that bat? And that's when Dylan started to hit Gio with a bat. Gio was struck, according to Dylan, one time and knocked him back, and then he knocked him down with the bat. And Dylan admitted viciously hitting Gio at least 9 times in the face and the head with a baseball bat. Dylan said he hit him repeatedly. Now, after that, Dylan throws the bat down, and he has a pair of blue gloves that he takes from the scene with him. As he exits the woods, a witness sees this. And Dylan tells the witness, I just hit my friend with a baseball bat. What do I do? And the witness says, well, you need to call 911 and get some help. You need to run home, dial 911 and get some help. Dylan runs to his house, dials 911. The witness goes into the wooded area and finds our victim, Gio, who has been significantly injured with a baseball bat. Upon arrival of EMS, our victim, Gio, who's only 15 years of age, is deceased from multiple blunt force trauma that only your imagination can calculate. Dylan admitted to us during his confession, once we got through all of his elaborate defense, that Gio never attacked him, never hit him, that he, in fact, is the only one that did any hitting, and that's what he did, was he beat his friend down with the baseball bat and continued to beat him until he died. We've charged him with, in consultation with the state attorney's office, with 1 count of first-degree murder and 1 count of possession of marijuana. The investigation is still underway as we tie up the loose ends, but we wanted to give you the details as we understand them today. I once again want to tell you, from everything we've learned, Gio was a good boy. He was not a troublemaker at home. He was not a troublemaker at school. He had a high IQ. According to his mother, he was performing very well in school. He was on track to graduate early. Just a good kid. On the other hand, you got Dylan with this kind of personality. This is his Facebook post. And ultimately, Dylan appears at this point in the investigation to have been absolutely, totally enraged, just absolutely enraged at the thought of Gio having any kind of relationship with this girl who he was deeply in love with. As bizarre as that sounds, that's the circumstances as we understand them today. Are there any questions?
The state attorney's office will decide if he's charged as an adult, is that correct?
That's correct. The state attorney.
Anticipate that happening based on your conversation?
We will request the state attorney's office to try him as an adult. He's 16 years of age. He has a criminal history. This was clearly a premeditated event, and it is appropriate for him to be charged as an adult, in my estimation. But the state attorney's office will make that decision after they review all of the reports and talk to our homicide team and homicide supervisors. Okay?
When parents see posts like this on Facebook,
When parents see posts like this on Facebook, they need to say something right now. This is not normal. I know that's not a news flash to you, but that is not normal conduct. And your child is disturbed, has some issues going on, wants some attention, so it can be something as minor as I'm not getting any attention and I want some attention, all the way to I'm a violent person, who that is a precursor to what we saw yesterday afternoon.
Was the suspect charged in this previous battery?
Yes, 3 times.
What was the outcome of it?
He's a juvenile. What do you think the outcome was? Nothing.
Sheriff, are you going to investigate if other red flags were missed along the way here that other actions could have taken place?
Certainly, our investigation is less than 24 hours old, and we will be investigating all of the details surrounding this young man and our victim as well. So we want all of the facts, and that's what we're after. What we've released is what we know at this time, and quite frankly, it's based on what we've seen as far as evidence, by the witnesses we've talked to, and certainly by the suspect who has given us a complete confession.
Sheriff, I understand that the mother said something last night off camera about having contacted the school, Dylan's school. I guess they went to school together, and she felt like the school had let her down. We don't have any information about what may have happened or not with that. Do you have any information about that?
I think what you're going to have to do is contact the school system and maybe friends of the school system and find out what happened. When you look at Dylan Murphy's picture here from a previous arrest, he looks like an innocent little kid until you compare him to his post here. And that's what's so disturbing is he looks like just what he is here, a 14 or 15-year-old kid in this mugshot. But when you look at his handiwork that he posts on his site and you compare it to this innocent-looking picture, you see he's not so innocent any longer. So you'll need to talk to them. Dylan was homeschooled at this time. Our victim went to Frostproof Middle School. But I tell you just unequivocally that discipline starts at the home, and it starts in the home, and it starts with parents. And then discipline has to be reinforced at school. I've had at least 2 teachers in the last week tell me the kids are allowed to run wild in school, that they're not disciplined like they should. Now, that's 2 parents' opinion, and they're talking to the sheriff. Is that actual, factual? I don't know. But I can tell you this, where there's no discipline, people will continue to work to the edge of the border wherever they're stopped. Well,
was there a reason he was homeschooled?
I don't know. He went to the Real Academy, and I'm not familiar with the Real Academy, and now he's homeschooled, but it's not unusual for a child who's removed from the school to be homeschooled, but certainly there are tens of thousands of children that are homeschooled that are not disciplinary problems and never have been. So just to suggest because he was homeschooled, he was a discipline problem on its face is not sufficient or fair.
Sheriff, you said that you believe this was premeditated. You described Dylan having a baseball bat or a t-ball bat. Had he planted that in the woods, or did he bring it in with him?
He brought it in with him, and when I saw the bat in the woods, it was full of dents. And we asked the parents, did that t-ball bat previously have dents in it? And they said absolutely not.
You don't believe Gio knew what was coming when he was...
Absolutely not. There's no indication.
Is that metal or plastic?
It's metal.
Sheriff, the girl
Aluminum.
that he battered a few years ago with Gio, was it the same girl?
I have no idea. And we've got to follow through all of that. That's the spider web that we'll be following in the next weeks to try to sort out all of our witnesses and the details. But I can tell you, it absolutely, totally breaks your heart when you see a wonderful young 15-year-old boy who's now dead because of premeditated, cold-blooded murder that this kid committed. And that's what it was.
The other batter incident, I guess, was involving his father. Another one?
Yes.
Details about that?
I don't have the details other than he battered his father during a domestic disturbance, but we'll get you the affidavits and let you see that. Here's the point, okay? This is why if you see something or hear something, you need to say something. What if, and we'll never know now, what if 2 days ago when the one kid, Dylan, told somebody else, I wonder what it feels like to kill somebody. Somebody then called 911 and say, you know, he's saying some real crazy stuff. Could an intervention have prevented this vicious murder? I don't know, but it was worth a try. But we didn't know about it. And that's what's scary. So when you, and of course we're all hypersensitive about active shooters. And almost without exception, if there is, it's probably only one, you always see some signs with active shooters and with violent people in advance. That doesn't mean that our interactions would have 100% stopped this murder or stopped an active shooter, but unless somebody tells us, we can't try. And there's one more case where we had a sign in advance, and we didn't have the opportunity to react to it because no one told us.